Hi, Tuesday, Thursday students. Because we probably won't have class on Tuesday, I wanted to do a quick lecture in place of class. I'm recording this on my phone, and so it's really hard to know kind of where to look. So, all right, so let's start with Negro Speaks of Rivers. That's in your textbook. And obviously I'm not gonna have time to do a full lecture here, but I wanna point out some things that I want you guys to look at. So when he's saying, I've known rivers, I think we have to ask ourselves, who is the speaker of this poem? Is it Langston Hughes himself? When he says later, I bathed in the Euphrates, I built my hut near the Congo, do you think that he's talking about himself literally? If not, who is he speaking for? Who is he speaking on behalf of? If it's called The Negro Speaks of Rivers, the sounds like one person, but again, even in the title, could this be him sort of speaking for an entire group of people? And if so, what does it mean if the I and the Negro here is the African American people? That they have known rivers, ancient as the world, older than the flow of human blood and human veins. And then look at, I bathed in the Euphrates. Euphrates here is an allusion to the Euphrates River. It goes back to the Tigris and the Euphrates in sort of the birthplace of civilization. So I bathed basically in the river where humanity began. I built my hut near the Congo. Think about the associations with the Congo, the Nile. These are places that we associate with either slavery or people just sort of being used, black labor. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans. Why did Abe Lincoln go down to New Orleans? That's a reference you should look up as an allusion. So think about the specific rivers that he's talking about. Why would he be making reference to these specific rivers? And why does he repeat this idea that his soul has grown deep like the rivers? Again, if he's talking about the African American people, what does that mean, that their souls have grown deep like the rivers? What is he saying about this culture and this people group? And then why like the rivers? This is a simile, a comparison that uses like. How do we think about rivers? Are rivers deep? Rivers, they flow, they change, they're never the same. Rivers are usually associated with fertility, civilization, life. They are sort of hubs of civilization. Oftentimes, we need them for transportation, we need them for water, we need them for vegetation and fish and food. And he's saying my soul has grown deep like the rivers. So pay attention to things that are repeated, like the word human. Rivers, deep. Pay attention to the allusions. Pay attention to the imagery. Like, I've seen its muzzy bosom turn all golden in the sunset, talking about the Mississippi. Why that imagery of the river turning, of the muddy river turning golden? Why would that happen? Think about the reference of when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans. What was happening? Why would there be an imagery there of something turning from mud to gold? Also think about, if we're talking about the African American people here, skin color, from changing a perception from muddy to golden. Yeah, lots of things to think about with this poem. So I don't want to tell you all what to think. I want you to do some digging on your own. But Negro Speaks of Rivers is one for you to check out on page 254. There's also a John Green crash course video where he talks about the Harlem Renaissance, and part of it he talks about this poem specifically. So check that out. It's in your newsfeed. Next, let's talk about, so Mexicans are taking jobs from Americans. This is from 1977, Jimmy Santiago, Baca. I'll let you do a little bit of, look him up and find out a little bit about his life. So in this poem, oh yes, do they come on horses with rifles and say, "Ese gringo, give me your job"? He's asking a question here. So do Mexicans come and like put a gun to your head and say, "Give me your job"? No, it's a rhetorical question here. And he's actually using a lot of rhetorical devices that we would find in prose in this poem. And you, gringo, take off your ring, drop your wallet into a blanket, spread over the ground, and walk away. Again, rhetorical question, no. Diction, right? Word choice. Ese gringo, gringo. So using very specific language here. Gringo is a derogatory term for a white person. And so I think the idea here is we have in our mind that they don't like Americans. But these two stanzas show us, like, this is not literally what's happening. They probably wouldn't even use this kind of language. And then he says, I hear Mexicans are taking your jobs away. And again, another rhetorical question. Do they sneak into town at night, and as you're walking home with the whore, do they mug you, a knife at your throat, saying, I want your job? Again, rhetorical question. No, they don't. When he says, as you're walking home with the whore, I think here he's, this is an indictment on America and the way Americans are maybe seen as overly indulgent or hypocritical. Next stanza, even on TV, an asthmatic leader crawls turtle heavy, leaning on an assistant, and from a nest of wrinkles on his face, a tongue paddles through flashing waves of light bulbs of cameramen rasping, they're taking our jobs away. So the asthmatic leader, a leader who has asthma. So this is imagery here. We can hear it, we can see it, we can sense it. It's sensory. Crawls turtle heavy, almost like so like large and lethargic. We think crawling turtle heavy, like slow. Turtles are old. We associate turtles with age for some reason. Leaning on an assistant, like he can't even stand up by himself. He has to lean on his assistant. From a nest of wrinkles on his face, so you get this image of a really wrinkly face. A tongue paddles through flashing waves of light bulb. This is not literal. This is figurative language. This is a metaphor. So is his tongue literally paddling through flashing waves of light bulbs? No. But the idea is like tongue paddling, like blah, 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 like he's just talking. Flashing waves of light bulbs, of cameraman. So this is about the media rasping, they're taking our jobs away. So we have this image of this old, sort of wrinkly faced man saying they're taking our jobs away. He is just sort of jabbering, doesn't even know what he's talking about. The next stanza, he says, well, I've gone about trying to find them, asking just where the hell are these fighters? And then this is the part where it gets, the tone, I think, gets more serious. The rifles I hear sound in the night are white farmers shooting blacks and browns whose ribs I see jutting out, and starving children. Very image heavy right there, so we've got imagery. I see the poor marching for a little work. I see white farmers selling out to clean-suited farmers living in New York who've never been on a farm, don't know the look of a hoof or the smell of a woman's body bending all day long in fields. Imagery again. I see this and I hear only a few people got all the money in this world. The rest count their pennies to buy bread and butter. Imagery. Then we've got another metaphor. It's imagery, but it's metaphor. Below that cool green sea of money, it's not a literal sea. Millions and millions of people fight to live, search for pearls in the darkest depths of their dream. It's the image of being underwater and searching for a pearl, the darkest depths of their dreams. So this is, it's imagery because we can imagine it, we can visualize it, but it's also a metaphor. They're not literally searching for pearls. They're looking for something that they could finally have, something they could find that would sort of change their life. Something that would be valuable enough that if they found it, they could maybe sell it, they could use it. So like the right job, finally finding the right job, finally finding whatever. Searching for pearls in the darkest depths of their dreams. Hold their breath for years trying to cross poverty to just having something. Here, poverty is a river or a body of water, a sea. So they're holding their breaths like underwater trying to cross as they search for these pearls. This is not literal. Again, this is a metaphor for what it's like to live in poverty. Next stanza, the children are dead already. We are killing them. That is what America should be saying on TV, in the streets, in offices, should be saying. We aren't giving the children a chance to live. So he's kind of shifting the focus and saying we're really concerned about jobs, but really we should be concerned about poverty and the children. Mexicans are taking our jobs, they say instead. What they really say is let them die, and the children too. So they're ignoring, Americans are ignoring poverty, they're ignoring sort of the future generations, and they are just angry about jobs. And so I think this is an indictment on the American people. I think this poem is image heavy, there's metaphor. I think it's a pretty scathing review of American values. So, Jimmy Santiago, Baca, 1977. Next poem, The New Colossus. This one was written in 1883. I want you to do some digging here as well. I'm not going to tell you everything, but the first question would be, if there's a new Colossus, what's the old Colossus? So, Colossus of Rhodes, Rhodes. I want you to look up Colossus of Rhodes. What was it? What did it stand for? What are our associations with it? Because the very first line says, not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. That's a reference to Colossus of Rhodes. So we've got this simile in the beginning, not like. So the comparison here, we're saying the new Colossus is not like Colossus of Rhodes. Colossus of Rhodes was described as brazen, conquering limbs astride from land to land. This Colossus that we're talking about is going to be different. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand. You've got that alliteration, this, and maybe this could be the waves sort of lapping up on the shore. Maybe. A mighty woman with a torch, Statue of Liberty, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. Imprisoned lightning could be an illusion. So look up imprisoned lightning and see what you find. A mighty woman whose flame is the imprisoned lightning. And her name, Mother of Exiles. Mother of Exiles could be a biblical illusion. Again, mighty woman. This whole poem is about the Statue of Liberty, a woman. And we're saying not like the Colossus of Rhodes, which was a man. So there's some gender stuff going on here. Also, diction is important. We've already said not like the brazen giant. So what's the opposite of brazen? That's how we would describe Statue of Liberty. And her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Again, we've got that alliteration, the W. And often alliteration is very welcoming. It's a soothing kind of sound. So because we have alliteration throughout the poem, think about the idea of welcoming. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. If her eyes are mild, how are they also commanding? And I think here, this is the tension in the poem, is that the Statue of Liberty is both mothering and welcoming, but she's also sort of this commanding figure. So her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. This is talking about the geography around where the Statue of Liberty actually is. Then there's a quote. So the Statue of Liberty is saying, "Keep, ancient land, your storied pomp," cries she with silent lips. Well, how does she cry out if her lips are silent? Because she's a statue. When she says, "Keep, ancient land, your storied pomp," she's saying, like Colossus of Rhodes, Greek fame, you can keep all of your storied history, all of your pomp and circumstance. Ancient lands have a lot of history and reason to sort of be proud, and she's saying you can keep that because she's doing something new. She says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." So she's very welcoming. We've got more of that alliteration, wretched refuse. Tempest-tossed. When she lifts her lamp beside the golden door, what is the golden door? Maybe the entrance to America. Why would that be described as a golden door? That's not literal, that's a metaphor. So there's a lot you could dig into with New Colossus, with the allusions, with the diction, the specific word choice. And also, I want to point out that this is a 14-line poem. Every line is about 10 syllables, so this is a sonnet. maybe a Petrarchan sonnet. So the first 8 lines are separate. And so usually in a Petrarchan sonnet, the first 8 lines are doing one thing, and then the last lines, the second half of the poem is doing something else. So that's something to think about as well. What are the first 8 lines doing? And then what is the rest of the poem doing? So lots for you to kind of look into on your own. This is in place of class, so I do expect you to kind of click on the links that I posted in the news, get familiar with these poems. I hope you enjoy them, enjoy your snow day. Hopefully we'll be in class on Thursday.